Our guest for today is Vivienne Mackinder. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. I follow you on Instagram and all of your social media handles, and I just love everything that you do.
Oh, that's so sweet. You know, I do love your hair.
Oh,
I'm a
thank you.
sucker for a blonde.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not a natural blonde, but you won't tell anybody.
Not anybody.
So, Vivienne, where are you from originally?
I'm from London. I was born in Greater London and spent a big part of my life educated there and playing there. And my father always said that if one is tired of London, one's tired of life.
Oh, wow.
He said
Beautiful.
that to me when I was leaving London.
Yeah. That's cute. What did your parents do for a living when you were growing up?
My father was an engineer and he had his eventually had his own company, and my mother was a housewife, and she was a great seamstress. She used to make all of my costumes, and I think growing up in the theatre as I did, and my mother having to very often make my costumes, um, when it became we went from costumes to fashion, we would go to this store in London and we would buy these patterns, and it would have to be as close to the designs that I saw in in the high street. And my mum would sew these dresses, and I used to be so critical. It's like, Mum, it's not like the one in the store. And it'd be like, don't worry, darling, it'll look kind of like it. And she used to make it at a fraction of the cost. So the other thing my mother did was a lot of costuming for me.
Wow. Do you have siblings?
I have a brother and a sister. I'm the middle one.
Were they also doing that same thing, having your mom sew things for them?
Well, and my brother, I think, when he was very little, he was a cowboy, I think, which was most peculiar for an English person to be a cowboy. But and my sister was a dancer too, but no one had the obsession for dressing up the way I did.
Oh, that's cute. So when did you, like, how old were you when you realized that you were going to start doing hair for a living?
Actually, it was a real, when you have those turning points in your life. I was dancing, and I could see that my career was coming to an end because I always struggled with being thin. I was always dieting, and I was always like, even though I was a small person as a dancer, in my mind I was big. And so the struggle to keep my weight, the at the age of 18, thinking, do I have a career in this? Because I'd only been sort of like semi-professional. And I thought, no, you don't really have a career. And one of the things that fascinated me the most about being a dancer was backstage, the costumes, the wigs, the hairpieces, the makeup. And I was quite fascinated by that. And I thought, well, if I can't be a dancer, maybe I can get into creating the image. And so that's how it was born. And when I was talking to a very dear family friend, they said, well, why don't you go to the London College of Fashion and become a hairdresser? It's like, what? And they said, yes, go there because they train people for film and for theatre, and it's a good foundation. So that was how I went through the path of dancing.
Wow, what an interesting story. I've been doing this podcast for a little over a year, and that's the first story I've heard where it sort of takes you through through one journey and then into the hairdressing realm. So that's awesome. I love that.
And it's always stayed with me because I remember there was this one chap in one of the performances. He was a pirate, and he would come off the street in his raincoat, just a normal kind of guy that you would pass by. And then by the time he was costumed and he had the wig on, you'd be like, wow, this scary pirate. It was Bill, but Bill turned into this amazing character. And had he not had the facial hair put on and the wig, he would
Wow.
have been that, ooh, gonna go and get you, that kind of thing. And I've always looked at what we do as a really important accessory. And to me, hair completes the statement. And I've always looked at the big picture. And when I see people, I see them as like, what character are they playing in their life, consciously
Yeah.
or unconsciously? And I always like to design from the inside to the outside. So I think that early training and that awareness, and even to body language, because if you come from the background of being a dancer, you're very aware of how you move through the world.
Yeah.
Right? You're already very aware of that. So when somebody just plonks in your chair versus sort of sits very elegantly in the chair, or however they move, if they're sort of sexy, whatever that is, I'm very sensitive to it. And this doesn't lie. So when you start to see that someone's very soft and feminine versus just really strong and more edgy, you can tell that there's a haircut has energy, color has energy. So when you do that, then you really are telling the full story.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's so true. So, so, so very true. So
Yeah.
what was your first love? Like when you started doing hair and you got into that, what did you really feel connected to the most?
You know, that's an interesting question because I don't really think it was a love affair at all. Um, I actually at college wanted to be more of a makeup artist than a hair person, and I really wasn't very good at makeup. We used to do special effects, and I thought I was better at making people look ugly than make them look pretty. But then I didn't like kind of some of the gory things that they would want you to do, and I thought, no, I do like pretty. I'm just not very good at it. And then, you know, did college, went to Sassoon's. You know, I wasn't really a great student at Sassoon's. It was always getting myself into trouble in terms of cutting people's hair way too short, or then I found a favorite haircut that would seem to work on everyone, so everyone got that haircut. You know, that kind of thing became my favorite thing. Then I got bored. Then I thought I better find haircut number 2 to do because I can't do this on everybody. So it was a very, because when you're not good at something, it's hard to love it.
Yeah.
And when I was ironically put back on the stage, because at Sassoon's, they said to me, they knew I had this background in theatre, and they wanted me to do makeup, which I did for one of their shows. Then they wanted me, they found out I was a dancer. Then they said, well, would you choreograph the show? And it's like, this is so strange because there's no sort of grand entrance. You know, you're not like coming in and doing all this amazing stuff. So
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. So I started to do a bit of that. And then within a very short period of time, I was actually standing on a stage and I thought, this is so peculiar. I'm just walking on a stage, I'm doing hair, but there's no performance. I'd never
Yeah.
spoken as a dancer. You don't speak. I certainly didn't sing. So the first time I had to speak about what I was doing, I remember looking at this massive screen behind me, and I've got freckles. And there's nothing worse when you don't like your freckles, to see yourself on a massive screen and your freckles are the size of a crater. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, the freckles are huge, right? And I'm thinking, oh, everyone can see this massive image of me, and then they can see that my hands are shaking as I'm holding the hair. My hands are trembling, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a total disaster. I'm going to cut myself, going to cut the person's hair. But that was the very first stage event that I did. I almost fell off the stage. I remember that clearly. It was a magnificent stage, and behind the stage, and I was familiar with these sort of stages, the bottom part sunk down. And in the bottom part of the stage at the back were the dancers, and we were doing a tribute to Urte. So we had all these beautiful Urte figures, and the models were sort of like draped around in this really beautiful way. And as I went to step back, the stage had gone down. So my way of entering and my way of exiting were like not the same. And I got onto the edge, and I'm seeing all these people down below, and I almost lost my balance. I could have easily been coming up on the stage, draped over one of the walls. But that was the first time, and I thought, how bizarre. I'm now going to have a career back on the stage again. And that was what I left.
Yeah. Yeah, you were just born to do it. You can't escape it. That's just who you are, I think. Yeah. A lot of our listeners, you know, one of the questions that they ask a lot is fears. Like, was there any fears that you had to overcome, or do you think this just came very natural to you?
Oh no, fear is a friend of someone who's passionate. I think fear is part of, it's definitely part of who you are. I think we all have it. I think the only thing that separates people who live in fear is how you process it and how you step into courage. So courage isn't void of fear. Courage is doing it afraid.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of things afraid. I've done a lot of things thinking, will this work? And sometimes that fear can be an incredible adrenaline, but fear is also an amazing teacher, because when you don't fear good things happening.
Right.
So fear is another way of saying, watch out, you could fail. Watch out, there's a big hole there, walk around it. Watch out, jump over the hole. So
Yeah.
fear can be a great warning to say, if you're going to do that hairstyle, what's your backup plan if that doesn't work? If you're going to do that hairstyle, should you maybe practice it on the mannequin? If you're going to do that hairstyle, will that model freak out? Maybe you should do it on a wig, then she will still like you. So fear is a way of giving you that sort of pause to say, okay, there could be danger. How are you going to process it and what you're going to do? So, you know, I think any big project that you do, you definitely feel afraid. I mean, I'm doing a project right now, which is called Viv's Hair Heroes. And it was born during this time of our pandemic. And I thought, I want to reach out to people who are my heroes. And I need inspiration, because people were coming to me saying, Viv, will you inspire us? It's like, inspire you? I feel like the world's falling around me too. How am I going to just put on a smiley face when there's not a whole lot to smile about?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, who am I going to reach out to be my hero? And I started to reach out to some amazing, iconic people. And the old Viv would have been terrified to even pick up the phone and say, would you be on my show? Because what if they say no?
Yeah.
And I said to myself, if they say no, they say no.
Yep.
If they say no, I'll find a way for them to say yes. And so now, 3 months later, I've got some of the most iconic hairdressers that are working with me, sharing their knowledge. And I just went up to them innocently saying, would you share your world? Would you teach me? Would you inspire me? I want to ask things about your world and your life. And by doing that, I know everybody else will enjoy it too. So that's a really good example of like doing it afraid. Like, yeah, there was hesitation, but just do it.
Yeah, you know, I can relate to that. The same with this podcast. You never know how somebody's going to react. You don't know if somebody's going to take and accept this idea. You know, you're just not sure. So I totally agree with that. Do it scared. You know, do it anyway and push through, because it's always worth it. You know, even if you get a no, you pick yourself back up and you try again. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've learned more from your mistakes than you have your successes, right?
Definitely. Yeah, when everything goes smooth, there's nothing really to learn. Yeah. Yeah. So how long do you think, Vivienne, it took for you to feel successful?
That's a good question as well. I think in my early days, feeling a sense of comfort, not success, but a sense of comfort, must have been about 6 or 7 years of doing hair. I started to feel a little more comfortable and I could do a few more things. I became an artistic director at the age of 23 at Vidal Sassoon, so it's very young.
Wow, that's very young.
And the first year they offered it to me, I said no. And then the second year I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a go, because I didn't want a title that I didn't feel worthy of. And I didn't know anything about leadership. And back then there weren't the books and I think when people studied leaders, they studied military people, you know, like, you know, what did that military person do? They certainly weren't studying kings and queens or prime ministers of countries. They weren't studying them. They kind of studied, you know, what would you do in a battle? How would you win a battle? And I still think actually today, some principles of leadership come from those great leaders that we had in that time. So I said no to it the first time. And then the second time I thought, well, I better go for it. But then I felt, gosh, am I worthy of this position? It's a huge responsibility. And did I feel successful then? No, not really. I just thought, well, that's an achievement. But I think that, you know, how do you measure success? You know, is the success financial? Is the success creative? Is the success the relationships you've built? Is the success the people that you've trained? So I suppose if you start to subdivide it into categories, you can say, well, that's been successful, that hasn't. This has been more successful, or that was successful, now it's a downright failure. Because what did work doesn't always work now. And so I think this time that we're living in today is such an important reset button to kind of think about, who am I? What have I achieved? Where do I want to go? What is the price I'm prepared to pay for success? Is success equal to happiness? So I don't know. So I would say the short answer is I still don't feel that successful. There's a lot more to achieve.
Yeah. I always ask my guests that question because it is so deep and it's so different to so many people. And a lot of people coming up through the industry, a lot of questions that they have is, well, how long does it take? And it's just, there's, like you're saying, there's so many different plates that spin that there's no right answer. But it does take time and it does take attention. But I think that you're right, there is no, it just depends on how you measure it, how you measure success for yourself.
Yeah. And I would say the more important question for everyone to ask themselves is, are you enjoying the journey?
Yeah.
Because you can do all the training in the world, but it's not until, like, take an Olympian. They spend their life training to win that gold medal.
Yeah.
And there are very few that win the gold medal over and over again. I mean, Mark Phelps is like one that has won 17 gold medals. But if you look at the path of an Olympian, which is their path to mastery, which is their path to success, and often financial success as well that comes with it, they spend their life training, and that moment on their podium with that gold medal is a few minutes.
Yeah.
Now, if they didn't enjoy that journey, if they were only fixated on the medal, they would not be the athlete they are, and they wouldn't be a happy one. They wouldn't survive. They wouldn't survive the ups and the downs. So I think we should embrace that same attitude of thinking, am I enjoying this journey? And if I do everything right on my journey, I will arrive at something really, really great. It's the law of average. I'm doing it right. I'm enjoying it. I am happy. The reward should be daily, not just when I arrive and it's done.
Yes, you are beautifully said. I could not have put that into words as well as you did. I agree with that 100%, and I think that I'm going to record that and play that to myself every night so I can remind myself that that's really the point, right?
Yeah,
So, Vivienne, what inspires your work? Like, where do you look to find inspiration?
well, I definitely have my eye on what everybody else is doing in the industry. I follow a very select group of people that I would say, wow, how did they do that? So that's always a source of inspiration, but I don't like to copy. So sometimes it will come from a piece of music that will inspire me. Sometimes it's a word, folded panels, and it could be a concept of all the hair has folding panels. Shadows and Shapes was the name of one collection, and we did it in a very moody way, and there were shadows and there were shapes. Sometimes it is a movie or history, like let's do something with an Elizabethan twist that meets punk. So it's ruffled, but it's punk. So sometimes mixing things that don't belong together gives you something really very original, which can be really lovely. So the ideas are everywhere. I think today, which goes back to the point that you were speaking to, you know, we have the responsibility to, we should slow down, because ideas are around us all the time. But if we're moving so fast, we can't see them. But when you slow down and you dwell and you take that time to marinate, you start to look at it and you go, oh, okay. But if you're Instagram flicking through, right, you're seeing a lot, but it's not registering. And to see and gather could be 10%, right? Gather. But the 90% is the application of what you saw. So if you don't take that time to dwell, to look at it, to marinate over it, and ask what if, ask why, ask how, and then start to think about, right, now how am I going to apply that? How am I going to apply that? Because do I want my mind cluttered like my closet? You know, the Pareto principle is the 80-20 principle, where in our closet, which applies, I'm going to use that because every girl can relate to it, and guys, 20% what's in our closet we wear, the 80% is just taking up space. Yeah. And we'll look at the 80%, we'll say, no, well, I won't throw that away. Maybe it'll come back in fashion. Or I won't throw it away, I may need it. And so it's the same thing with what we're talking about here. When you gather all of this stuff and it clutters inside your brain, you're only going to use maybe 20% of it. The 80% is just taking up vital space. And the clearer your head, The quieter, the clearer, the more you can focus and create. But when it's busy, it's not a healthy place to be in for any
Yeah.
decision you make in your career.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the whole idea for this podcast came because I got real serious about going to the gym and having routines and doing meditation and those kinds of things. And when I got real still, it's funny how simple things can be. You know, you overlook those simple thoughts because, like you said, there's so many things happening. If you don't slow down, you miss those very valuable things that's going on in your brain that's trying to send you signals or whatever it might be. So do you do any kind of meditation, or what do you do to calm yourself?
I do meditate. I have a ritual I do every day. I do exercise, and I also have a horse. And
Okay.
horse is definitely my biggest therapy because horses function in the fifth dimension. So they can feel your energy. They can actually see into what you haven't. They can see your shadow self before you're actually
Okay.
doing it. So they have an incredible intuitive energy. So if I go up stressed, he's going to be kind of looking at me like, "What's going on?" And I may think, "Oh, why are you so uptight tonight?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mirror.
Yeah.
So my horse is very therapeutic, and I think it's really important to find something where you can escape, especially when one works incredibly hard. So yes, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to run the course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually I have a 6-year-old daughter, and she wants a horse in the worst way. And now you're convincing me because I'm like, I don't know too much about horses, but when I have talked to people who have horses, they have that connection with horses unlike any other animal. And so I think I might have to give in. I think I might have to.
Welcome to the money pit.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah. So, Vivienne, if somebody wanted to do what you do today, what advice would you give them?
Don't.
Don't. Get a horse. Yeah.
I would, wow, when you look at our industry, some of the biggest names in our industry are men. And it's fascinating to look at them. And like my hair heroes, they're predominantly men that I have. And that wasn't because I thought I must go out and pick men. I just went out to look for some of the most extraordinary men. Now, are there amazing female hairdressers? Absolutely. But when you look at the top level of the people who are most public and doing the most innovative things, they're traveling, which is very hard on family. They have a schedule that's quite challenging, very hard on a relationship. And I think women are equally, and in some cases, more capable of doing
Yeah.
some amazing things. But it's the price you want to pay, because how can you be a mother and do that? How
Yeah.
can you be a great wife and do that? And I know quite a few people who are at that high level that are not in a marriage, they don't have children, their career is their life, and they are happy to have that as their way. It's not a sacrifice. So I think that when you look at the price you pay for what you do, that's the huge thing. So if somebody wanted to follow in my path, then obviously I had great training. I had great mentors. And I grew up in this industry when hair was incredibly exciting. I mean, the innovation that was going on was amazing. So I grew up in a time where hairdressers were like rock stars. Hair has become much more commercial. Obviously, our focus right now is much more on color, which is fabulous. But there is much more long hair happening, which is gorgeous. It's more commercial. Probably people are making more money. So it's a different place today. If they wanted to follow in my footsteps, as I say, the training I had was incredible. The experiences I had traveling the world, not only for shows, but photo shoots, traveling all over the world, were amazing. So now that we're sort of quarantined to our countries, and I look at the places I've been around the world, I actually did say to myself, I wonder if I'll ever go back to these places again. I wonder if that's just I should start looking back at my pictures of where I've been, and will I go back to Morocco? Will I go to Australia? Will I go to Bali? You know, will I be in Venice doing a photo shoot? Will I be in these places? And I don't know. I don't know. So I feel very blessed to have had that. So, but you know what? If someone was going to follow in my footsteps, they would have to really want to sacrifice a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I've traveled a lot as well in my career, and I'm a mother of two, and it's tough for sure. You have to have a support system. You have to have the right people in place and very organized lives, I would say, for sure. So my last question for you, Vivienne, is do you think that you retire from the industry?
Retire? Yeah, for sure. I mean, my legacy is Hair Designer TV. It now has 1,000 videos on it. So
Wow.
that's a pretty heavy duty legacy to leave behind.
Yeah.
I've always said if you can't do it well, then stop. And, you know, I'm now much more involved in the editing of my content. I'm more focused on presenting my content in a different way. And I'm also, you know, looking for who will replace me so that Hair Designer TV can live on and continue to help and educate people, which it does. So, but yeah, I can see that because you know, there's lots of other fun things to do in life. I still love doing hair. I still love a great photo shoot. I still like, on Monday, we're doing the third in the series of my hair heroes, which is back in time. It's a journey through time. So we started in the 1900s and we're going up to the 70s, which is, I'm doing it with Nicholas French, and we're doing the story of his father, Freddie French, who was a very, very famous British hairdresser who built an empire.
Wow.
He also lost the empire.
Wow.
So it's the most rich, amazing story. So your viewers can see it on my Facebook page, on Vivienne Mackinder Facebook page, and it's also obviously archived on Hair Designer TV. But that story, to look at these iconic hairdressers, how they went through their lives, I think it's so important to, you know, finish on top. And when you can feel yourself sliding, reinvent yourself. It doesn't mean you have to leave hairdressing, but do something different. So my reinvention is kind of through my website, like what can I do differently through there, and how can I change my medium? And I'm actually right now don't really want to get on a plane and go into shows or workshops or any of that. So everything's kind of now in this virtual world, which I've been living in for the last 17 years. Can you believe that?
Wow. Yeah.
Everyone came into my world. It was my world.
Yeah.
Claim it. I was the first. So yeah, it's great. It's a big party now, so everyone's there.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. Well, so what are your handles like on Instagram, Facebook, and what other platforms do you have?
Well, we have Hair Designer TV, which is the mothership of where all my content lives. So everything I do is funneled through Hair Designer TV. Facebook is Vivienne Mackinder, and Instagram is Vivienne Mackinder, and that's how you can find me.
Perfect. Vivienne, thank you so much for your time. I realize that time is so valuable, so I really appreciate you spending your time with us today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for doing this, for adding value to so many hairdressers' lives, and congratulations to you. And I hope more than anything that you and your listeners can take something away from this and apply, so that therefore we've added value to other people's lives, which is the most important thing of all.
You definitely added value, and you're a perfect fit for these listeners, and so thank you so much for being here.
All right, take care. Thank you. Bye, everybody.